Right. So again, I will call and you can repeat. Om Sadashiva Samarambam
Sadashiva
Samarambam
Shankaracharya Madhyamam
Shankaracharya Madhyamam
Asmadacharya Pariyantam
Asmadacharya Paryantam
Vande Guru Paramparam
Vande Guru Paramparam
Om Sahana
Bhavatu Sahanau
Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam
Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe.
Om
Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you. We mute everyone. Right. So we looked at the first prayer last time. So let's look at this one as well. Sahana Vavatu means, so this is all in dual case. In Sanskrit, there is also a dual case in addition to the singular and plural. So this is all in dual case. It's talking about, it's a prayer for both the student and the teacher. So still trying to figure out how to mute everyone. Okay, I can't see it in the screen right now. May he protect us both. Pardon me. So Sahana Vavatu means may he protect us both. And Sahanau Bhunaktu means may he nourish us both. Saha Viryam Karavavahe. Viryam is strength. Karavavahe is in what we endeavor, in what we hope to acquire. May there be strength in what we acquire. Tejasvina vaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. It means Tejasvina, bright. May what we study be bright. And may it illumine us, because we always talk about Jnanam, removing the darkness of ignorance. So that's what that means. And Mavit Vishavahe, like it means maybe not quarrel. The teacher and I, may we not quarrel. May there not be any ill feeling between us, because that would be again a hindrance to the study. And the three Shantis are for, so we basically talk about three forces. The Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik, and Adhyatmik. Adi Daivik is all your unseen forces. It could be all your natural disasters, things like that, all the things out of our control which affect us on this planet. So Adi Daivik forces. So one Shanti is for that, Adi Daivik. The second Shanti is for Adi Bhautik, that is all the seen forces, people around you, your immediate environment, may that be supportive. May my spouse let me sit for this 1 hour with uninterrupted, may not be anyone else disturbing me in this time, things like that. So that's second Shanti is for Adi Bautik. And the third Shanti is Adhyatmik, that is myself, in the sense of this body-mind sense complex. May there not be any hindrance that I create for myself. May my health be well, and may I be able to concentrate in this full 1 hour. So that's what the third Shanti is for. And generally we chant Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we go from higher to slightly softer with the 3 Shantis, because the Adi Daivik is the furthest away from you, Adi Bautik is closer to you, and Adhyatmik is very close to you. So you can say it's softer. That's why we chant it like that. So that's the second beginning prayer. And Purnamada, as I said, I will take it a few classes later, because you'll have more of an understanding of what I'm talking about at that point. So what did we do in the last class? I hope you all remember. We talked about what is Tattva Bodha, and we said this is the knowledge of true nature, or yourself. It can be also known as self-knowledge. Then we talked about what are the 4 Purusharthas, the 4 human endeavors. There was Artha, which is the endeavor of wealth and security. Then there was Kama, which is seeking pleasure and all your wants. Then there was Dharma, doing the duty, doing the right thing. And there was finally Moksha. And then we demystified moksha. Before moksha, we talked about also the 3 defects in the first 3 Purusharthas. I hope you remember. And then we talked about moksha, and we demystified it, saying it's nothing other than 5 benefits. Jignasha Nivritti, which is the satisfaction of this curiosity to know. Vidyananda Prapti, the absolute joy you get from having this knowledge, and this is different from any other joy, which is Vishayananda, that you get from an external object, because this is knowledge about yourself. Then Karpanna Nivritti, no, you will lose that desperation and dependence on worldly fleeting objects, which are temporary. And because you will always have your UPS to fall back on. Agata Nivritti, which is freedom from shocks and traumas that this life can throw at us. And Dakshata Prapti, which is gaining efficiency. And we said that moksha is enjoying all these benefits in full measure. Now, you might wonder, do I have to wait till I get moksha to enjoy all these benefits? Not really. It's a bit like a hungry man. If you give food to a hungry man, his hunger will start getting satiated as he eats. Correct? He doesn't have to finish eating the full meal for the hunger to be satisfied. Whoever is unmuting themselves and talking, can you please?
తర్వాత ఇందులోకి టేస్ట్ కి సరిపడట్టుగా పచ్చిమిర్చిని ఈ విధంగా తుంచుకొని వేసుకోవాలి. ఇప్పుడు టేస్ట్ కి సరిపడట్టుగా
Right. So it's like I was talking about the hungry man. So as he starts eating, he starts getting his fulfilled, his hunger starts getting satiated. And so is with this pursuit of this knowledge. It's not that at the time of moksha alone, you will enjoy the benefits. You will start enjoying these benefits from the very start as the time goes on. So Swami Paramarthananda, who I talked about in the last class, one of the acharyas in our lineage, he has this concept of FIR. So we know what FIR means in India, but his acronym FIR stands for a way for a spiritual aspirant to measure their own spiritual progress. So F stands for the frequency of your internal disturbances. Am I getting disturbed 5 times in a day, 10 times in a day? I stands for the intensity. Once my equilibrium is disturbed, how intensely do I feel that disturbance on a scale of, say, 1 to 10? Is it like a 9? I'm really completely disturbed, or just like a 1? Or then there is R, which is the recovery time. Once your equilibrium has been disturbed, how long do I take to come back? Do I take 10 minutes? Do I take 15 minutes? Do I take 2 full days? You know, there are people who hold grudges for 20, 30 years of their life, right? You don't want to be one of those people. So that is what FIR is. How do we use this as a gauge? You don't check it from instance to instance, because, you know, instances itself vary in terms of the magnitude of the instances. You might just be having an off day. So you can check your FIR more in a period of time. You can check in these 6 months how my FIR has been, or when you're initially starting out in these 3 months, how my FIR has been versus the previous 3 or 6 months before that. So you can judge this for yourself. You can, if you want, you can journal it. You can even make an Excel sheet noting down your full FIR. And you will see for yourself how your FIR is improving. And this is a very simple way any spiritual aspirant can check their own progress. Is this working for me or not? Why should I continue doing this study? And that will maybe tell you why there are some people who keep coming to these Vedanta classes year after year, for 5 years, for 10 years, you know. So a lot of them initially might not have moksha as a goal. In the beginning, I didn't, you know, I wouldn't have identified as a mumukshutvam, as someone who was seeking moksha. For me, it all just looked like, okay, it's talking about my psychology. It's making sense. I'm implementing what it says, and it seems to be working. I'm more peaceful and I'm happier. So, you know, bring it on. That's how my journey started. And yeah, I became, of course, it changed me a lot very quickly, for sure. So now, having talked about all this, we are still going to take maybe 1 class or maybe 1.5 classes more before we get into the actual Tattva Bodha text itself, because there's a few more basics which is nice to know before we get into that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So these 5 benefits that you're talking about, so they are simultaneously you're experiencing them all the time in full measure.
That is moksha.
That is moksha. Okay, finally.
When you can experience them 100%, you're always feeling that bliss. No shocks can disturb you. You're able to function at full efficiency. That is finally moksha. But you will start experiencing all these 5 benefits at the start of your journey. Another Swami says, this is kind of like for a jnani, for one who has moksha, they very quickly go from what to so what. So that's the difference it will bring about.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. So how do we gain this self-knowledge, right? Now, valid means of knowledge in Sanskrit is called Pramanam. Today, we will spend some time looking at the various kinds of Pramanams, what's considered a valid means of knowledge. and how the different spiritual schools of philosophy in India vary on their take on how to obtain this knowledge. Because you're here having classes of Advaita Vedanta, but there are also different philosophies which exist in India. And as you progress on your spiritual path, or probably already you will keep hearing about these. So what is the differences? It's good for you to know. So let me share some slides again. Okay. Can you? Yeah, you can see the slides well. Okay, so this is the 6 sources of Pramanam, or means of knowledge, that is commonly talked about. The first is Pratyaksha. Prat meaning this. Pratyaksha means viewing, like seeing, right? Prat is in front of me and Aksha is eyes. So while it says eyes, it's used as an indicator for all your sense perceptions. So any knowledge that you can receive from direct sense perceptions, such as what you can see, what you can smell, hear, touch, taste, all these comes under Pratyaksha Pramanam. And then you have Anumanam, which is inference, which is something which you cannot see directly, but you can you see something else which is an indicator of this. Like, for example, you see smoke and you deduce that there is a fire. How do we know this? You know this because of previous perception or knowledge, because you would have seen in your kitchen whenever there is fire, there is also smoke and so on. Now, the important thing for Anumana is there should be something called invariable concomitance, which is if I see smoke, there must definitely be fire, right? Otherwise, I should not be seeing the smoke. And if there is no fire, then there should be no smoke. So it should be valid in both ways, in both the positive way and the negative way. Then only it's called, we can accept this as Anumana, if there is that invariable concomitance. Then we have Upamana, which is comparison. When you, this is used a lot to talk about the qualities of Brahman, because Brahman is not something which can be perceived by any of the senses. So we use this Upamana a lot there. Now, what is Upamana? Say, you tell your friend, I'm going to Australia for a holiday. And he says, oh, great, you're going to see a lot of kangaroos. And I've never seen a kangaroo. So I was like, what is a kangaroo? So he tells me, imagine a very big rabbit, which can can stand on 2 legs, 2 of its behind legs, and the legs are very big, and it's brown in color, and it will also have a pouch in front of it, so it can carry its babies in this pouch. I was like, wow, that sounds really cool. So then I go on my holiday to Australia and I see this big brown kind of rabbit jumping around. And I say, this is what my friend was talking about. This must be a kangaroo. So that is Upamana. Based on comparison, you're able to get a source of knowledge. So this comparison can be to do with similarities, and it can also to be do with dissimilarities, right? So for example, you can say it's not white like a rabbit, right? So it's the dissimilarities we're talking about. So that is Upamana. And the next is Arthapati, which is postulation. You can also understand this as a two-step inference. For the example, which might not be very politically correct, but used very often in Vedanta to explain Arthapati, is there is a man, Devadatta, who is very fat, but he is never seen eating during the day. How is this possible? Can you take a guess how this might be possible?
He eats at night.
He's eating at night.
Correct. So that is Arthapati. So you have two pieces of information which seem contradictory to each other, and you must hence make a postulation to which is the only way it would make sense. So that would be the postulation, Arthapati. Then the next one is fairly simple, Anupalabdhi, which means non-availability of a perception. So right now I can say it is not raining. How do I know? Because I don't see rain. So that's as simple as that. The non-availability of a cognition is Anupalabdhi. And finally, we have Shastram, the scriptures, also known as Shabda Pramanam. Shabda meaning the word. So it's only scriptures which can give us this self-knowledge, this knowledge about Brahman, because it is not, none of these other pramanams, sources of knowledge, are able to give you this knowledge. So we will talk also about the various layers of scriptures a bit, maybe today itself or in the next class. But these are the 6 sources of pramanam. Any doubts in these?
Just need a repetition for Anupalabdhi, please.
And
Anupalabdhi
also.
Okay, Anupalabdhi is non-availability. So I say person X is not in class today. How do I know? Because I don't see the person.
Example.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the example I'm giving. Sorry.
I have a lot of question on moksha.
Sorry,
Moksha.
one second. So the lady who asked about Anupalabdhi, are you clear? Or
No, still not clear.
I am actually not very clear because there is some sound background.
really? With me, is everyone hearing?
Not with you, in my house. Actually.
Oh, okay. Maybe you can listen back to the recording.
Background noise.
Yeah, maybe you can listen to the recording again in that case. So
Can
Anupalabdhi just means I don't.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. So Anupalabdhi is non-perception of something. So I can say there is no rain today. Right? So how do I know there is no rain today? Because I don't see rain. Because something is not there. So I see that's giving me the knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
And
But if I see rain,
Postulation.
pardon me?
Postulation.
Postulation is a
Example of it.
two-step inference. Okay, so you have 2 pieces of knowledge. So it's different from Anumana. Is Anumana inference, you just had 1 piece of knowledge. You saw smoke, so you inferred there was fire, right? In this Arthapati, you have 2 pieces of information, and they both seem to be contradictory to each other. They don't go together well. So this man, Devadatta, he is fat, but no one sees him eating during the day. So how can he be fat? So you have to make some kind of inference which ties these 2 contradictory pieces of information together. And our inference in that case, we call it postulation, was that he must eat at night. Okay, is that clear, Preeti ji?
Now,
Yes.
Right.
now,
Yeah.
if
Maybe
it says like,
we can raise a
can
hand,
I?
so then I can call on one-on-one. Right. So, yeah, I think I have Kyati, you raised your hand. Please tell me.
Yes. So I was asking that when we are saying that anuplabdhi means we are seeing something not there. I mean, so what is that fine line difference between pratyaksha pramana and anuplabdhi? Because we are not seeing means ultimately it is our sense perception only which is telling us.
Right.
that,
It's very similar. So, so in the same example, Pratyaksha Pramanam, you getting a piece of knowledge from Pratyaksha Pramanam would be saying, today is a sunny day, right? So that's direct perception. How do I know it's a sunny day? Because I see sun. And if I say it's not raining today, how do I know? Because there is no rain. So it's the way, it's very similar. So one is you're seeing something and the other is you're not seeing something. Not just seeing, but any of your other perceptions.
it is kind of negating any kind of, I mean, negation of, sorry, my phone fell off. So it is kind of negative perception.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely right. It's just
But ma'am,
okay. Next, I will take Lalita ji. Raised her hand.
Actually, this, just I'm asking, if people say, I don't see God, so God is not there, does that come under Anupalabdhi?
No. So you will understand this in the next slide, where we will talk about, yeah, you'll understand it in the next slide. You asked me again.
Yeah, Astika, Nastika, that comes under that. Just for negation, I was asked. So this doesn't come under Anupalabdhi, right?
It won't, because it can be, that perception can be negated. So we will talk about it in the next slide. You'll understand it. Ask me again if you don't that time.
can I
So
ask?
Anupalabdhi is if there is the absence of anything, we are negating it's not there. So absence is like a proof. Absence of the object is a proof that it is not there, right?
Yes, but it should be self-valid. Again, we will talk about it in the next slide. Just give me 5 more minutes. We'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
1 second. Induji, I will take Rani ji next because she had her hand raised.
Yes, Namaste Spandana ji. I have a question regarding moksha and not types of pramanam. You spoke of moksha and all its 5 characteristics that you can enjoy in this lifetime. I would like to ask is what happens to a person like Lord Rama or Lord Shiva? They are liberated souls. They are gods.
So,
in their own
Rani
right.
ji, I will just interrupt you right there, because generally what we do during class is, if you have any questions, for everyone, I didn't maybe share this before. If you have any questions directly related to what I just said, we take it right now. Otherwise, we will take it after the one.
Okay.
So that we don't get distracted from our what we wanted to cover at this hour.
Okay. No, I don't have any questions on types of pramanam.
Okay. So, and Induji, please tell me.
So just taking the example of rain further, that if I don't see rain per se,
Okay.
but if I see, let's say, very severe black clouds or something, right now, then I will assume that it must be raining somewhere. So then it becomes arthapatti or comparison.
It would be, so if you can't definitely say it must be raining somewhere, can you, for sure?
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Anumana, it could come under Anumana.
Yeah, you can say there is a possibility of rain because I see clouds. In that case, it would be Anumana.
हाँ, यही मुझे लग रहा था कि अनुमानम या अर्थापत्ति में क्या comparison.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, let's do one thing. Let's just, I see a couple of more hand raised. Hold it for 5 minutes because maybe the next slide will clear some more of your doubts. Okay. 1 sec. So we just talked about pramana, but what makes pramana a valid knowledge? One is anadigatam. It must reveal something to you which cannot be revealed by anything else, right? It's giving you a new piece of information. Then only it's pramana. If it's just giving you a piece of information which was revealed to you by something else, then that's memory, correct? So the piece of information it reveals should be unique. For example, what color is this kurta? It's white, yeah? So how do you know? Because you're looking at it. You sensed it through your perception of your sight. Now I say, okay, but now prove to me that this is a white kurta. I want to be able to taste it and say this is white. That's silly, right? You can't. You cannot smell that this is white. You cannot touch and say this is white. You can only see and say this is a white kurta. So it is very unique in that way. This, for something to be called a pramanam, it has to be giving you a unique piece of information which no other pramanam can give. And the second is abaditam. It must be unnegated. So this would kind of answer, I think Lalita ji had that question, where if I don't see God, is there no God, right? So this is a piece of pramanam which is negated by another pramanam, which is Veda pramanam. Veda pramanam negates this pramanam. So it has to be negated by, it can be, if something gets negated by another piece of knowledge, then it was an error. Yes, it might have initially been your perception, but then we put it as error. Okay, so we say it is any piece of pramanam is self-valid unless negated. But sure, like for sure, something we consider knowledge can be negated, right? So if you're walking in the desert and you see water in the distance, you are aware of this possibility of mirages as well, but you're very thirsty, so you still walk towards it. And then you realize that it was a mirage. So initially your pratyaksha pramanam told you there is water, but then it got negated. So then it becomes invalid. And that's what the self-valid means. How do I mute everyone again?
Can I?
1 second. I'm just trying to mute people. So every time I have to do that, I have to exit the screen, I think. Okay. Right, please.
Shall I?
1 second, please. So let me just finish with this piece and then I'll open for questions again. Yeah. Right. So we were saying that what makes something a valid piece of knowledge, right? So it was anadigatam and abaditam. Now, cognition doesn't need another cognition for validity. All cognition is self-valid unless it's negated. So I gave you the example of the white kurta, of what it means, right? So similarly, now what does this mean for Veda as pramanam, Veda as a means of knowledge? So if someone says, prove to me what the Veda says, we have to simply say Veda is pramanam, that's it. You know, there is no proof for it. You either accept the word of the Veda, which makes you an astika, or you don't accept the word of the Veda, which makes you a nastika. But as the conditions also said, you should not be able to disprove anything that Veda says. So that would make Vedas invalid. So for this reason, you're allowed to ask as many questions as you want to clarify your understanding about what the Veda says. Yeah, so I stopped those slides now because I think we're done with it. Someone was asking that they can't see the slides. So that's what it means by how do you accept, how do you have this faith in the Vedas? You have to learn to have faith in it in the same way that you have faith in any other sources of Pramanam right now. So you've learned to trust what your eyes see. You've learned to trust Anumana. If you smell smoke in your building, you're not going to say, no, I'm not going to evacuate till I actually see the fire. You're going to evacuate, right? So you've learned to trust all these other sources of Pramanam. So similarly, that is when we will talk about Shraddha later, faith. That's what we mean by Shraddha, that you either accept Veda as Pramanam or not. But no other proof will be able to negate it. That we will assure you. So, but you cannot have questions like, but no, Veda is saying this, but I think it should be like this. That means you're not accepting Veda as Pramanam. So those kind of questions, we will not be able to entertain or answer. Now, similarly, a lot of people, even Vedantians, some Vedantians take a lot of pride in saying Vedas is very scientific. But again, science cannot prove something which is there in the Vedas. Because first of all, science itself is constantly revising itself. And Veda is not something which is revised. This knowledge came, we will talk about how it came, and it's been constant since. So at most you can say Vedas can be used as an axiom. What's an axiom? You propose something. Usually most axioms in science are very wild. You propose something and you create other experiments around it to prove what, if that was true, what are the other things which could be true? So you measure something else which could be measured if that first condition was true. So at most you can say Vedas can be used as an axiom. It cannot be proved, right? So yeah, now we can take any questions if people have.
So Miraj comes under this was like we were. It looked like a water, so that comes under which I'm getting. I know because the slide is not there. I'm not getting.
Oh, okay, no, that's fine. So see, initially it looks like water. So you thought there was water, so it was Pratyaksha Pramanam. But then when you went and saw that it was not water, it got negated. Right?
Anupalabdhi. That is Anupalabdhi.
No.
Right?
It's not, then it's not Pramanam. When your source of
Anupalabdhi,
knowledge,
right?
No, when your source of knowledge gets negated, then it was an error. We call it an error.
Okay.
So your Pramanam is no longer Pramanam, it becomes a Pramanam at that point.
So now when I go there, I see that the water is not there it was just a mirage. So the absence of water, I'm negating it. Water is not there.
Yeah, so then at that point you can say Anupalabdhi. I know there is no water. So basically your Anupalabdhi Pramanam negated your Pratyaksha Pramanam at that point. But it was later, like your initial perception, because there's only one piece of information at a time, right? So initial piece of information you had was, I see water. So that you took it as Pramanam and you went there and then it got negated. So it becomes simply an error. So there was another Pramanam which helped you negate it.
Yeah. Thank
you. Okay. Preeti ji, you have a question?
Hi, ma'am.
Yeah, please say.
Just in starting, you explained about the 5 gunas. That time my network was unstable. So could you please explain it again later in this session?
Yeah, you asked this question at the end of the class. We'll take it then.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Divyaji?
Would like to understand the clear meaning of Pramanam. Sorry if you've already explained it.
Pramana means source of knowledge, a valid source of knowledge.
So the source is it? It is not your comprehension of it. No, it's
No,
the source.
source of knowledge, a valid source of knowledge. Because now we will be revealing Veda Pramanam to you. You may or may not understand it, but it's still Pramanam. It won't change the fact that Vedas is Pramanam. Okay. Ashwini ji?
Spandana ji, so Pramanam is more like a fact and not perception. Is that?
I didn't quite get that. More like what?
Is it like it is the truth, or is it what I perceive?
It is a valid source of knowledge, because only in Pratyaksha we talked about what you perceive, right? We also talked about inference and these other kinds of pramanam. And even Shabda Pramanam Shastra is not a perception. So we're talking about these 6 are the valid pieces of knowledge. I will share the slide with you, so you will have it also with you.
Okay.
Later.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, or shall we go to the next section? So let's look at the next section. So we said it's good to know. Again, I will share my slide. Yeah, so we are looking at now what are the various darshanas. What are the various darshanas? By darshana, we mean viewpoints in India. We don't call it philosophy, because philosophies is something which comes out of your someone's mind, really. Right, so we use the term more darshana. So at least definitely for Advaita Vedanta, it's not a philosophy, it's a darshana. So we talk about 12 main ones in which are popular in India specifically. So there are 6 Astika darshanas and 6 Nastika darshanas that we talk about. Astika means they accept Vedas as Pramanam, and Nastika means they do not accept Vedas as Pramanam. So in another context, Astika and Nastika are also used to say they accept God or do not accept God, but we use it in the sense of do they accept Vedas or don't accept the Vedas. So in the Nastika darshanas, those who do not accept the Vedas, we have Buddhism. So there is typically 4 schools of Buddhism. I won't really get into the details. And even all this, you don't really need to completely remember it at this point, but just have an overview, and you will find that you will keep coming back to this later on, but usually much later on when we are talking about when we start entering the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutras, then we start checking what the other darshanas are saying and negating that to prove the validity of our viewpoint. And it's also good for you to know, because as you're on this spiritual path, you will keep, maybe hearing about these different philosophies. So you need to know, why are you picking Advaita Vedanta to study, right? So one recommendation which I got from my Acharya that I will pass on, and because it served me very well, is as you start on this journey of Advaita Vedanta, if initially it's making sense to you, you feel there is some validity in what it's saying, I was recommended that at least for 2 years, stop reading any other philosophies or viewpoints, because this will confuse you. It will, because each of them have a different theory of how creation came about, what is the reality of everything, and so on. And if you keep looking at these different things, you will get confused in these early stages. But once your kind of fundamentals are established, you can then open your these filters, and this information will not confuse you. Okay, so that's just a piece of recommendation. Do what you want with it. Coming back to this particular slide, it's so after Buddhism, which do not accept the Vedas, 4 schools there. There is Jainism, which again most of you would have heard of, and there is Charvaka. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake there. I'll correct it before sending it out the slide. Charvaka is, you don't really see it as a Darshana these days, but it is very much there in our society. It's materialism, which basically means that this world, they believe this world is all there is. There is no further consequences beyond this lifetime. So eat, drink, and be merry. That's the philosophy of Charvaka. And then coming to the 6 Astika Darshanas, we have Nyayikas, who were the original logicians. They were the original epistemologists. So epistemology is the study of what is knowledge? How do you gain knowledge? What is error? So they actually created a lot of this pramanas that we are studying about. They originally came up with a lot of that. And in Advaita, we don't mind, accepting whatever is valid from other viewpoints. We don't feel the need to debate with everything. So we accept these classification of pramanas that they came up with. And Vaiseshika were the original metaphysicists. So they have these theories about how this creation came to be. They have some theory about, these different, the small atoms or something they call that they merged and then they merged, and this is how the world came to be. They have some theory like that. And at some point, Nyayikas and Vaisheshikas came together because Nyayikas accepted the metaphysics that Vaisheshikas put out, and Vaisheshikas accepted the logic that Nyayikas put out. And together, we often call them Tarkavadis. Okay, so almost all your other darshanas here, except Charvaka, they accept Pratyaksha Pramanam and Anumanam. Okay, it's only Nyayikas and Vaisheshikas additionally also accept the next 2 that we talked about, which is Arthapati and Anupalapti, I think. But yeah, these are different darshanas accept different pramanas. Not all of them accept all 6. That's the main point for you to remember here. It's only Advaita Vedanta which accepts all 6 sources of pramanam. And it's only Advaita Vedanta which accepts Vedas as the primary source of pramanam. All these others that we see in the Astika Darshanas, they accept Vedas, but largely as a secondary source of pramanam, which is why some of the theories you find, and when you're coming to Bhagavad Gita and all, you'll find it quite funny how this very clearly non-dualistic statements will be interpreted with duality. So Samkhya philosophy is again a dualistic philosophy. It's, I guess the second most popular in India today when you're talking about in the Sanatana Dharma itself. So Samkhya has a it's a dualistic philosophy. They say there is Prakriti and Purusha, and both are real. So Prakriti is the matter principle, and Purusha is the consciousness principle. And they say samsara is because Purusha has gotten confused itself with the Prakriti. And liberation will be when this separation is realized. But then they say both are real, it's dualistic. And yoga is, we use yoga again in a lot of contexts, but when we talk about yoga as a darshana, it is based, it's generally all the practices that you do in all your, like your Ashtanga, eightfold steps of yoga, which is your yamas, niyamas, this pranayama, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So all these, the practices, but which are largely based on Samkhya philosophy. That is yoga. And again, like I said, in Advaita Vedanta, we have no problem accepting things from other darshanas where it makes sense. So we completely accept all these practices laid out in Ashtanga yoga, and we think, we agree that this is great for a spiritual aspirant. We say you can follow all these practices. We will only differ. We don't take this as the end point. We say this is all path. This duality is the path to finally reach non-duality. So the practices are fine, but we don't accept, in Ashtanga yoga, they will say samadhi is liberation. And we will deny that because we say it's samadhi is a state which you come out of, that it cannot be liberation, right? But samadhi is very useful on your spiritual path. That's what we will say. Then we have Purva Mimamsa, also known as Karma Kandas. And so basically the Vedas are, you can roughly divide them into two parts, right? So the first part of the Vedas is talking about karma, like talking about all this ritualistic part. It's addressing the first three Purusharthas. Because like we said before, Vedas doesn't tell you to have moksha as a Purushartha. It says people have the goals that they have. If you ask an alcoholic to stop drinking, he's probably more likely going to stop talking to you than stop drinking, right? So let people do what they want, but they lay out all these rituals and the correct way of doing this, that so while you're pursuing your other goals of wealth, pleasure, everything, at least you do it in a dharmic way. So there is a lot of ritualistic part which is laid out for that reason in the first part of Karma Kandas. Then the second part is Vedanta. Anta, like I mentioned before, means the end. So this is the end portion of the Vedas where the highest knowledge is given. So in this, we have Advaita Vedanta, which is where we are, right? We also have Vishishta Advaita, which they say, we say consciousness is one. There is only absolute consciousness, and everything is this absolute consciousness, that is Brahman. There is nothing other than Brahman. That's what we say. Vishishta Advaita will say there is a bunch of different consciousness principles and such. Again, Dvaita is a dualistic interpretation of Vedanta. Okay, so that's roughly all. We don't need to get into the details of any of this. Just keep it somewhere in your purview, and you will keep learning a little bit more about this a bit later in your Vedanta study. Any questions on this right now? Okay. Right. So we're almost at 9. Let's see. Someone was asking, it's Charvaka. So I made a spelling mistake in the slide. I will correct it when I send it to you. Okay. So we won't get into anything new because we're almost out of time right now. So we will take one more class or half a class more to talk about what is the different layers of scriptures in the second class, the next class. Right. Yes. And so now we can take questions. Preeti ji, you have a question?
Ma'am, the same one. Can you please repeat the 5 gunas, the earlier starting of the class you said? 5
gunas? I didn't talk about any 5 gunas. I talked about the 5 benefits that we talked about in the last class. So you have to go listen to the recording of the last class.
That is there. That I have it, but starting 10-15 minute session was missed. So I thought.
You can catch up with the recording. So I'm not sure. Might have you have missed quite a bit in 15 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Okay. So we're in good time then we can end the class here. I will share the prayers too. So I will call and I will call and you can repeat after me. Om Purnamadam.
Om Purnamadam.
Purnamidam.
Purnamidam.
Purnat Purnamudachyate.
Purnat Purnamudachyate.
Purnasya Purnamadaya.
Purnasya
Purnamadaya.
Purnameva Vashishyate.
Purnameva Vashishyate.
Om Shanti
Shanti,
Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Tat Sat.
Om Tat Sat. Hari Om.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week ahead.
Thank you, Spandana ji.
Thank you, Spandana ji.
Thank you, Spandana ji.
Thank you.
Thank you.